Alrighty, well, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Lizette Annette from West Texas A&M University. I'm the team captain and I'm joined today by my three teammates. In the next slide, you'll see images of all of us with our degrees. We have Justin Greniger. We're all engineering technology. Justin Greniger, Magali Medina, Noel Perez. We're all engineering technology students from West Texas A&M University. At WT, we have two career paths. We have renewable energy and industrial distribution for engineering technology. Our advisor is Dr. Joshua Parthapan, and he was assisting us throughout our experience in this project. Next slide. Here I will hand it off to Noel so that he can give you all a little bit of backstory on our project.
All righty, hello, can you hear me? No issues?
No issues, you're good.
Okay. All right, so the project overview is that our customer, which is the Illumination, they wanted us to provide PV systems to these 9 facilities to be considered. The main goals are to reduce the emissions from energy productions and from the fossil fuel consumptions. Our objectives are to provide electrical energy offset, increase customer savings, and out of these 9 facilities, we chose to do 5 due to their ideal geographical location for development, as well as their potential for battery storage. Next slide. So the total load requirement for each one. So how we did it is that we split them up, each different locations, into 3 things. First, we did yearly consumptions, then monthly for each month, and then for half a month. So in our PV system design and selection, we did PV plus battery storage. We all use SAM and Aurora solar program given to us by Enro. These simulations provided climatic data such as irradiance and temperature profiles, as well as LiDAR and solar tracking scans. And then with this, the Illumination is a protected tribal nation who still holds sacred lands, so deforestation was avoided by using readily developable land such as parking lots and vacant areas. Next screen. And now it's up to Justin Greniger.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Justin Greniger, and I'll be talking about the distribution impact summary. So for each of our 5 locations, we'll be dealing with some risks that mainly deal with the weather that goes on in the Illumination. A lot of that is mostly extreme cold, snow, and wind. And so that basically allowed us to start looking for specifications in our solar panels. And as you can see to the table to the right, you can see the 2 solar panels that we decided to use for this project. So for the first one, we had Silfab Solar, which is our 370 watt, and then there was a SunPower Maxen 440 watt. And as you can see down there, you can see the cost, weight, and warranty. For the SunPower Maxen, it was a little bit more expensive, but however, it was slightly lighter than the Silfab, had a better warranty, did have a better output. Both can handle a good max load of 5,400, which can help in windy areas. And of course, the efficiency is different from 20.2%, and with SunPower being 21.0%. And towards the end of it, we decided just to use the SunPower Maxen 440 for all of our systems. And now, next slide. We'll talk about the curtailment of the system. So for all the inverters that we chose, we're hoping to reduce the energy transfer at all these locations to allow the systems to meet the location demands and not overload the current grid at the same time. Of course, towards the end, we were looking into smart inverters, which allowed voltage to come from the system into the grid at any target level that the user wishes. But sadly, we couldn't get to that in time. However, we do have some of our inverters right here with their specs. So for our 2 inverters that we use for all the systems, we have 2 different kinds from Power Electronics. We have the 225M and the 201CU. Now the 225M has a unit capacity of 3,367 AC kilowatts, an input voltage of 913, 1,200 VDC, and a total capacity of 3.37 AC megawatts, with an AC loss of 1%. Now for the 201 CU, that one has a unit capacity factor of 1,200 AC kilowatts, an input voltage of 584, 800 VDC, and a total capacity of 1.2 AC megawatts, with an AC loss of 1%. Next slide. Then I'll hand it off to Magali to talk about the financial analysis.
Hello, can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so for the Wexlium and Elder Home, we had PV panels with inverters. These locations were added with battery storage, and that was because it was recommended by the customer. It was used as shelter during harsh weather. And of course, for their emergencies, it required electricity to be on 24/7 in order to keep the life-saving equipment for the Little Bear Elder Home and then the Wexlium when it acted as the community emergencies facility. And then on the Casino Cove School and the school, they only had PV systems with inverters, since the battery storage was not necessarily needed for those specific locations. Although they had a unique modular installation with the different costs, such as the ground mounted being $1.75 for every kilowatt. The roof installed was a total of $3.90 for every kilowatt. And lastly, the carport was $3.50 for every kilowatt. Can you move to the next slide, please? So secondly, for all the five facilities that we had chose on, the above rates were all equal. So the analysis parameter came up to be for a project life of up to 25 years. On the inflation rate, it consisted of 2.5%. And then the real discount rate was a total of 6.4. On the tax and insurance rates, the federal income tax was a total of 21% every year. The state income tax is a total of 7% per year. The sales tax being a 5% per year, and then the insurance 0.5% a year. And then the incentives for the federal investment tax credit was a total of 26%. And then the ones that will be different will be for this slide is the one on the right-hand corner. And for the Wexlium, we had a carport installation. And the project cost for that for every panel consists of $3.89 per watt on the installed cost. The total for the panels was a total of $2,218,726. On the financial targets and constraints, we had a power purchase agreement price for 10 cents for every kilowatt hour. The power purchase agreement escalation rate consisted of 0.5% every year. The results for the nominal levelized cost of energy was a total of 41.8 cents for every kilowatt hour. The developer net present value was a total of 63,600. Next slide, please. The school, we decided to do a carport installation, and for that cost, for every panel was $1.03 for every watt. The total installed cost consisted of $1,736,876. On the financial targets and constraints, we had a power purchase agreement escalation rate being 1% for every year. On the target internal rate of return being an 11% in year 20. And then lastly, the results for the nominal levelized cost of energy was 16.2 cents for every kilowatt hour. The PPA price on the first year was 17.1 cents for every kilowatt hour. The investor net present value consisted of 231,800. And then developer NPV, the net present value consisted of 205,000. On the right hand, we have Elder Home, which this was a ground mounted. And then the project cost for every panel was $2.43 for every watt. The total installed cost consisted of 2,692,574. The financial targets and constraints for the power purchase agreement price was 10 cents for every kilowatt hour. The PPA escalation rate consisted of 0.5% every year. Lastly, on the results for the nominal levelized cost of energy, we have a 33.8 cents for every kilowatt hour. And then the developer net present value was 76,600. Next slide, please. Okay, so then the casino was ground mounted as well. And then it was a total of 1.3 cents for every watt. And then the total installed cost consisted of 7,556,098. On the financial targets and constraints, we have a target internal rate for year 20 as an 11%. The power purchase agreement escalation rate consisted of 1% every year. On the results, we have a nominal levelized cost of energy being 17.5 cents for every kilowatt hour. Power purchase agreement price on the first year was 18.3 cents for every kilowatt hour. On the developer net present value, we have 846,600. And then investor net present value was 915,800. And then on the cove, which was the rooftop, we had a project cost for every panel as $1.03 for every watt. The total installed cost consisted of 68,237. On the financial targets and constraints, we have a target internal rate of return on year 20 as being an 11%. And then power purchase agreement escalation rate was a 1% every year. On the results, the nominal levelized cost of energy was a 65.3 cents for every kilowatt hour, and then the power purchase agreement price on the first year was 71.3 cents for every kilowatt hour. The developer net present value was 28,900, and then the investor net present value was 40,000. And all these came from our SAM reports that we analyzed after we chose our storages and panels and everything. So the whole information for our final analysis came from the SAM reports that were constructed. And then next slide, please. Now I will pass it on to Lisette Annette to speak on the development plan.
Alrighty, thank you for that detailed explanation, Magali. So for the development plan, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about why we selected what we did for the locations. So for the Wexleyan, we selected to use a grout port installation because there wasn't much available land. As we said, we were trying to steer off of the deforestation, since we already know the Illumination has plans to deforest a lot of their beautiful forestry for the Olson subdivision that they plan to develop. So next, for the K through 12 school, we also did a similar carport installation where we figured that the cost of the installation could be offset by maybe selling parking permits that offset the cost of making the carport installations themselves. This system had an irradiance of 1,310 kilowatts per meter squared per year. Next slide, please. For the Elder Home and the Fisherman's Cove, for the Elder Home, we decided to do a ground installation. For the Fisherman's Cove, we decided to use a rooftop on top of their gas station. We noticed that the gas station looked like it had been newly remodeled or constructed, so we went ahead and did a system that wouldn't obstruct their aesthetics. We installed the solar panels on the back of the building, and then for the Elder Home, since these older citizens aren't using their back lot area as much, we figured that the installation of solar panels would not obstruct any activities that they had there. Next panel, please. And then for the development of the casino, we had a couple options. We could use the farmlands above for agrivoltaic solar panels, the baseball park, as long as we considered the idea that they are going to expand, and then the casino parking lot. We considered the carport installations, but that wasn't exactly the output that we wanted. And we're not very familiar with the agrivoltaics and couldn't get a solution that we found viable. So we went ahead and did a ground installation on the baseball parks around the left side and below, where we provide some area for the addition of 2 additional baseball parks. Next, please. Now, on the construction schedule, we kind of detailed a little bit of our estimated times for what it would take to do that. And then we just bid every item separately for each system.
Thank you. Time is up for the presentation. We will now move on to the questions from the judges.